On August 13, 1947, 13-year-old Suri Sehgal was too enthusiastic to sleep, eager to see his town in Punjab shift from India to the newly founded Pakistan. The next day, he joined his family and friends for a flag-raising ceremony at the Lala Musa rail station. However, the celebratory celebration rapidly turned violent as religious tensions exploded. That night, Sehgal witnessed armed mobs hunting Hindus. Fearing for their safety, Sehgal's father transported him and his siblings to India on a crowded refugee train. Along the way, they witnessed horrific sights of death and destruction. Millions of others shared Sehgal's experience during India's partition in 1947, when British India was partitioned into Hindu-majority India and Muslim-majority Pakistan. This rapid divide resulted in widespread violence and chaos, leaving long-term wounds on survivors. Partition was the result of colonial rule's divisive policies and hastily constructed borders. So, what led to this partition? The roots of the partition may be traced back to the 17th century, when the British East India Company, a private company that traded in Indian goods such as spices and silks, began acquiring property in India. They began to exert control over local administrations and enact laws that contradicted India's long-standing cultural traditions. In 1857, Indian soldiers rebelled against the company, prompting the British government to disband it and seize direct control of India. This time is referred to as the British Raj. The British Raj appointed officials, many of whom had never visited India before, to manage the country. These British officials and their families lived in immense luxury, while the majority of Indians remained poor. As Britain exploited India's wealth and natural resources, it partitioned 60% of the country into provinces. They also acknowledged hundreds of princely states or independent districts governed by local authorities. To retain control, the British Raj emphasized the disparities between religious and ethnic groups. According to geographer A.J. Christopher, colonial authorities utilized factors such as religion and skin color to divide and isolate people. They gradually granted Indians limited political rights, although the process frequently resulted in competition and dispute between Hindus and Muslims. In 1905, Lord Curzon, the British Viceroy in India, worsened the tensions by dividing Bengal, India's largest province, into two parts, one with a Muslim majority and the other with a Hindu majority. Curzon, a staunch colonialist who saw Indians as inferior, encountered fierce opposition to his divide-and-rule plan. Although the division was rectified in 1911, it had already fueled the independence movement led by the Indian National Congress, a political organization created by educated elites to negotiate with the British. The Muslim League, a political party in India that advocates for Muslim rights, rose to prominence during this time period. Mohandas Mahatma Gandhi, a politician and lawyer, joined the Indian National Congress at the beginning of the 20th century and began promoting nonviolent civil disobedience as a means of achieving India's independence from Britain. But the British government frequently responded to his actions, boycotts, marches, and demonstrations, with ruthless force and judicial crackdowns. British authorities implemented several reforms, including expanding Indian voting rights and their representation in local administration in an effort to console the nationalists. But only a small percentage of the people profited from these changes. By 1935, only 12% of Indians gained the right to vote. When the United Kingdom entered World War II, it included India in the battle without asking Indian officials. Many Indians were displeased with being forced to defend their conquerors' interests. To rally support for the war, the British government offered India the status of a British-owned dominion, which entailed limited self-rule under British control. The Indian National Congress declined the offer, wanting complete independence instead. Gandhi began the Quit India campaign in 1942, calling for quick independence from Britain through widespread civil disobedience. The British government responded by arresting Gandhi and other leaders and prohibiting the Indian National Congress. This brutal response just increased the Indian people's commitment to achieve independence. The British persecution of the Quit India movement backfired, mobilizing even those who had previously opposed independence. This resulted in major riots and numerous arrests. Although the Quit India campaign was quashed, the strong British response, along with the horrific Bengal famine of 1943, which killed millions, convinced British commanders that India could no longer be an obedient colony. As the prospect of independence approached, tensions between the Indian National Congress and the Muslim League rose. Gandhi and another Congress leader, Jawaharlal Nehru, thought that an independent India would be a single unified nation. However, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, the leader of the Muslim League, disagreed. In 1940, Jinnah gave up on the goal of a united India. The Indian National Congress claimed to represent all Indians, but the Muslim League believed it mainly served Hindu interests. Jinnah contended that a unified India would subject Muslims to Hindu rule. As a result, the Muslim League advocated for the establishment of a distinct nation known as Pakistan, where Muslims might exercise autonomy and self-government. The situation became much more severe in 1946, when talks between the Indian National Congress and the Muslim League fell through. Jinnah declared a direct action day of Muslim protest, stating, "We will either have a divided India or a destroyed India." This call resulted in disaster. On August 16, 1946, violent riots erupted between Muslims and Hindus in Calcutta, the capital of Bengal province. A military official described the mood as electric, noting that the disturbances created full distrust between the populations. Approximately 4,000 people were murdered, 10,000 were injured, and 100,000 were made homeless. As India approached civil conflict, Britain's willingness to preserve authority decreased. Under international pressure to withdraw, King George VI dispatched his cousin, Lord Louis Mountbatten, to India in March 1947 to arrange Britain's retreat. Mountbatten convinced Indian officials to approve the formation of two new states, Hindu-majority India and Muslim-majority Pakistan. Despite being allotted a year to finish this assignment, he sped up the process. Cyril Radcliffe, a British lawyer who had never visited India, was given only 5 weeks to split the country and establish new borders. The princely states were free to select whatever new nation they wanted to join. Radcliffe and his team were tasked with drawing boundaries that recognized religious majorities, while also creating contiguous borders. The Radcliffe Line was easy to draw in areas with obvious majorities, but Radcliffe soon learned that religious groups were dispersed throughout India. Drawing a dividing line was especially difficult in provinces with almost equal Hindu and Muslim populations, like Bengal and Punjab. Finally, Radcliffe and his team, who had little experience with map-making or Indian politics and culture, opted to divide Bengal and Punjab in half, giving about equal amounts to India and Pakistan. As a result of this decision, Pakistan became a non-contiguous nation, with the majority of its territory in the northwest and a distinct entity, East Pakistan, located in Bengal, far to the east. This decision had far-reaching effects, leaving hundreds of thousands of Hindus and Muslims in the wrong country and separating East Pakistan from the rest of Pakistan by 1,000 miles. Pakistan and India were finally declared British Crown dominions on August 14 and 15, 1947. Mountbatten cleverly delayed the release of the official maps for a further 2 days in order to emphasize British goodwill. Bloody aftermath of partition. What Britain described as a success was actually the beginning of the world's biggest human migration and one of its most destructive periods. Uncertain about the newly drawn borders and which country they now lived in, up to 18 million individuals packed their possessions and fled to what they thought was the right country. This misunderstanding and anxiety fueled long-standing rivalry between Hindus and Muslims. After years of increasing polarization, old resentments turned deadly, and new hostilities erupted among people whose minority and majority statuses had abruptly reversed. Tens of thousands of women were kidnapped and raped during this time, and some even murdered members of their own families. Mobs attacked refugees and townspeople, set fire to buildings, plundered houses and businesses, and committed mass murder. The violence was especially intense in Punjab and Bengal. In Punjab, ex-soldiers who had fought in World War II used their guns to support local leaders. Mithili Srinivas, a historian, states that these elites used the chaos of partition to settle old scores, assert claims over land, and secure their own political and economic power. Despite the fact that Pakistan and India were British dominions at the time, the British did not interfere to stop the violence. The princely state of Jammu and Kashmir became a major source of conflict between India and Pakistan. Initially, the Maharaja of Kashmir wished to remain independent. However, following an invasion by tribal militias from Pakistan in October 1947, he decided to join India. This sparked the First Indo-Pakistani War, 1947-1948, and the continuing Kashmir conflict, which is still unresolved. The Radcliffe Line, which marked the border between India and Pakistan, was drawn rapidly and with little precision. This haste resulted in territorial disputes, as the border was not clearly delineated in many regions, heightening tensions between the two states. The division created substantial economic disruption. Businesses and agricultural fields were abandoned, and both countries struggled to deal with the refugee surge and the aftermath of conflict. Many individuals were forced to abandon their homes, towns, and ancestral lands, causing a loss of cultural legacy. The shared history and cultural links between villages were significantly impacted. By the time the violence abated about 1950, 1 to 2 million people had died, and both countries had been irreversibly altered. Gandhi was assassinated in 1948 by a Hindu nationalist who believed he was too pro-Muslim. But it didn't stop there. Pakistan's unusual geography, with East and West Pakistan separated by a wide distance, intensified tensions. East Pakistan, which accounts for 56% of Pakistan's population, received less financial and political authority than the western part. Bangladesh declared independence in 1971, following years of conflict. Pakistan reacted with a military campaign, killing at least 300,000 civilians. However, Bengali officials believe the figure is closer to 3 million. This resulted in a deadly 8-month war, after which Bangladesh gained official independence as a secular democracy in 1971. In the 75 years after partition, territorial tensions between India and Pakistan have boiled, resulting in 4 wars and ongoing cross-border terrorism. For many who witnessed it personally, such as Suri Sehgal, the memories are still vivid. While Sehgal's family was fortunate to reconnect in India by the end of 1947, many others were not so fortunate. For many people in India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh, the losses and terrible memories of those bloody, uncertain days continue. Do you think things would have been better if partition had never happened? Share your thoughts and insights in the comments below.